you're right. I think the more he does it, the better he is at what he does, and he gets feedback that it's making change and making difference. A
Hmm.
difference in the world. So it becomes a self-validating belief system. Okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. But he's only doing good against his own values and his own beliefs. Now,
He has to feel like he is making a difference. He's got to feel like he is contributing. He's got that. That's what makes him that gives his life value.
I put what happened to Elon Musk at 5 years old? And it said at the age of 5, Elon Musk experienced a severe beating after an altercation with another student, resulting in hospitalization and subsequent reprimands from his father. This incident, along with his difficult relationship with his father, shaped his drive and ambition, according to his biography.
and it may be a future we want. It may not be a future that we want. And we've got a person who's so powerful at manifesting their belief systems and stuff like that, that love it or hate it, we're all going to be pulled along for that ride.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Thursday night, our Zoom chart reading. We are looking at Elon Musk tonight. So everyone knows who Elon Musk is. That's why we are going to look at his chart, and we're going to show you how to basically look at someone's life blueprint. So we're going to use Elon Musk because everybody knows his story. He's had a couple of books written about him and he's in the news. There's not one person on the planet that doesn't know who Elon Musk is. So what we're going to do tonight is we are going to have a look at his natal chart, which is basically, like I said, his blueprint, his default settings. And we are going to unravel what makes Elon Musk, why he does the things that he does. We're going to look at his communication style. We're going to look at basically we're going to look at what he's here to do. And we're going to kind of dive into what has made him who he is today. So we'll look at like his early life and stuff like that. So we're just going to get started. We're just going to have a look at the chart. And well, let's start. Let's start by saying, hi, my name is Michaelin. I am an Aquarius sun, a Libra moon, and a Libra rising.
I am Damien. I'm a Aquarius sun, a Leo moon, and a Taurus ascendant.
Hi, I'm
And
Rowan. Sorry, I'm a
go
Leo
ahead.
moon, sun, and Aquarius ascendant.
Sorry, Roman, say that again.
Oh, hi, I'm Rowan. I'm a Leo sun, Taurus moon, Aquarius ascendant.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're just going to basically look at this chart. We're going to kind of look at what jumps out at us. We're just going to take turns kind of interpreting the different planets and positions and aspects. And we're just going to show you guys how you can look at somebody's natal chart and figure out who they are, why they are the way that they are, and maybe what they're going to be or what they're supposed to do with their lives. And so we're just going to show y'all how to do that. The first thing we do when we look at a natal chart is, well, the first thing I do is I usually look to see what jumps out at me first. And this chart, it's all over the place. So nothing really jumps out immediately. I do see that sun in the 12th house. I do see he's got a double Cancer and he's got a Virgo moon. So that's, I guess, what's going to jump out at me. And the fact that the sun and the Mercury are so close together, and the Mercury is in the first house, which, as we know, is the ascendant. It's how the world sees you. I think that's going to play a huge role in Elon Musk and what has shaped him and why he is the way he is today. Rowan, as you know, we like to look at the Chiron, and that's up there at the very top. I think that's definitely going to show us kind of the wounding that he's been through and what's really pushed him to be as successful as he is and to build as much as he's built. We know a little bit about his early life. He's got two siblings. So he's got a brother and a sister. They're both pretty successful. His brother, he runs a sustainable, I think it's like a food company or something like that. Anyway, he's pretty cool. His sister, she does like a filming company, and so they're pretty successful as well. But obviously Elon is the most successful, and he's the richest man in the world. as we all know. And right now, everybody's talking about him. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to sit here and we're going to break down Elon Musk and we're going to break down his personality. And we're just going to have a little conversation. You guys ready?
Sounds good.
Sounds
Why don't we
good.
take a look at his chart makeup? We've got, when we look at the sign modalities, we've got overwhelming amount of energy in cardinal. So he's got a very cardinal chart, which makes sense for a Cancerian. But out of the cardinal signs, Cancer is probably one of the more inscrutable cardinals. So it's interesting trying to analyze and break down exactly how that's going to express. Very little fixed energy, which makes sense when we look at his public persona. And there's a ton of mutable energy as well. And I think that mix of cardinal and mutable is something that's really, really been apparent in him. One of the most interesting things I read about him in the past was when he sets about a task and somebody tells him that it would take 10 years to complete, then he tells his development teams, well, let's approach this like we only have 4 years to do it and see what happens. You know what I mean? And that's a beautiful mix of cardinal and mutable, whether it's practical, and in the early stages, you hear something like that and it seems preposterous, but he seems to be able to fast track and streamline a lot of these tech breakthroughs that he's been right on the bleeding edge of. So that's interesting. When we look at his elemental makeup, we've got 4 in fire, 4 in earth. We've got 6 in air. They're roughly equal. And then we've got 9 in water. So there's a little bit more in water, which surprised me when we look at his chart as well. I didn't expect to see that water energy there, as apparent as it was. But when we look at his house modalities, we see there's a minimum in cardinal. There's 2. There's 8 in fixed and there's 7 in mutable. So they're roughly balanced in both. So that seems to balance out with the sign modalities. That's an interesting sort of mix here. And in the end, it kind of breaks even, I think, everything sort of balances out there. The chart type is a bucket chart with Mars being the handle of the bucket up there in the 8th house in Aquarius. Now, Mars generally is not comfortable in Cancer, but when you throw it in an indifferent or rebellious sign like Aquarius, it has a whole interesting lean on the way that expresses. And also, since it's the bucket chart, it in a way creates this interesting juxtaposition where a planet that's ordinarily weak takes center stage, and that the person is constantly being forced to work with that energy. That's an interesting sort of juxtaposition right there. So I thought that'd be, an interesting sort of breakdown of what we're looking at. So that gives us a bit of a foundation, at least, gives us an idea of, the way he moves, which is interesting, because generally when you think of the way a crab moves, it's side to side, but this is a very forward-moving crab. We've seen that.
Yes. But another thing about the crab is they have that outer shell that's kind of hard. So you wouldn't, with cancers, a lot of times I've noticed some of them do keep their feelings inside. They stay inside that shell, unless you make them mad, and then they come out with that pincher.
They make excellent directors, though. I've met directors of companies. I've met companies that have had very highly placed managers and things like that have cancer, and they can be very, very tough bosses and very demanding bosses, but surprisingly vulnerable when things don't go their way. I've seen it before. I had one that I knew had a team, and she was extremely tough on them to the point that they all went on strike. They wouldn't work with her anymore. And it just emotionally, it just destroyed her. She had an idea in her head of the way things were going to go, and all of that. And that was the complete opposite of what she wanted. So, and that was an interesting way of an example of how that cardinal energy in Cancer can work. They can be extremely driven, and they can be extremely tough as well. And that hard shell on the outside makes it look like they're undefeatable, they're unyielding, and they're indifferent. But they are extremely sensitive. They've, in a lot of ways, they say some of the Leo in that regard.
Yes, well, that's what it looks like with him. It looks like, on the outside, he gives a persona. Well, sometimes he does come across as vulnerable and empathetic. I'm sure you've seen him with his young son X, and when he has him, you see all the feels. You get all the daddy energy and all of the Cancerian protective energy. so we do get to see that side of him. But I think that the Cancer also, the way that it helps him is it does keep him kind of protected. He can either be empathetic and show that caring side, or he can retreat into his shell or whatever and scurry on down the beach and get out of there. Or in his case, off the planet, because he's got that
Mars in 4
SpaceX
years.
company. Yeah, yeah. And that's another thing. I mean, that Mars, you talk about it being a bucket chart, which to me, I imagine a bucket is something that you carry. So since the Mars is the handle, it tells me that Mars is carrying him. And it's probably been carrying him since he was a young child because, his childhood was not great. Like I said, I mentioned he had two siblings, but he was bullied when he was a young boy, and he was actually put into the hospital because he was beat up so bad. And that was, I think, when he was 9 or 10. And after that, he basically retreated, kind of like a Cancer. He retreated into his shell. And that was when he created his first video game. I think it was called Blaster or something along those lines. And at age 12, he sold it for $500. And after that, he just threw himself into all things technological and futuristic, and that was it. That was his trajectory. That was where he was headed. And we can see that right there with the Mars and the North Node sitting right there next to each other in Aquarius. We all know Aquarius is that innovative, that technological, it's all technology, it's innovation, it's forward thinking. And so it looks like that's what he's here to do in this lifetime. We talked last time about the Aquarian architect. John brought that up and kind of introduced that into our group. And this is, to me, it's like he's the poster child for the Aquarian architect. He's building, and I mean, quickly and in every direction, Oh, and not to mention, let's look at this Mars placement and remember that he is literally wanting to colonize Mars, and Mars is the handle. So that's pretty literal. And I mean, he couldn't know that, but that's one of his main goals is to colonize Mars. And there's the Mars sitting right there next to the North Node. So maybe that is what he's here to do.
I think Mars is part of it, but you look at that Mars, that's the ruler of his Chiron, his Aries Chiron at the top of his chart, with the expectation of pointing is one of the defining experiences that I think that's shaped Elon Musk has been leadership. He's always found himself around leadership from when that leadership spill when he was in PayPal as their CEO, then got bumped out of that role and then ended up going to the board, right through to SpaceX, to the Boring Company, to all those other companies that he's run. He's always found himself moved into leadership. And also, he's always been at odds with leadership from opposition as well. People, leaders from different interest groups, from different companies, all of that, pushing back against him. So power and leadership, I think, the defining characteristics. I think you're absolutely right. I think Mars is going to be part of what he does, but I don't think that's going to be the whole goal, especially with Elon Musk. 4 years they'll be on there, we'll move on. The Tesla company is the first company to go public since Ford. You know what I mean? And already it looks like, I mean, they're experimenting with hydrogen technology now. It looks like they're got to be moving away and divesting from electricity as a power source and moving towards hydrogen. So, I think this whole Mars thing there, for him, it's not to get us on Mars, it's to get us on Mars and then start building a world and then a culture and then a nation on Mars as well.
Yeah. That's what he said. He wants to colonize Mars. He wants to.
Yeah,
he wants
absolutely.
To,
he wants to be there in 4 years. He wants 1 million people there in 4 years. So I don't know if I want to be part of that first million when I see what's happening with those Tesla trucks, parts coming off and stuff like that. He really is the definition of bleeding edge. He'll take you to the future, but it's going to be a rough and dangerous ride getting there, and you may not. Safety's not guaranteed. But that's the type of pioneer that he is, I think, at the end of the day. You've got that opposition from that Chiron at the top of the chart down to Uranus at the bottom. So You know, his leadership model will be up against his recklessness all the time. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the moon in the second house in Virgo, that, you know, analytical. So that aligns with his love of spreadsheets. You know, I'm sure that, you know, he's very organized, obviously.
Compartmentalized.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know,
that. Yeah.
The Virgo moon balances out the Cancer. So,
yeah,
you know, he's able to, Virgo being an earth energy, keeps him grounded.
I think that moon is part of that secret side of him as well. I mean, we've got the sun in the 12th house in Cancer. I mean, Cancer's already such a defensive and withdrawn sign in that regard, and his is in the 12th house, so you know, it's even more withdrawn. I think it's part of that side of him you'll never see. I think probably the side we're all seeing of him's a persona at the end of the day, and his moon's, that's the only aspect his moon has got is to that sun in the 12th house. So I think that's part of his, whatever that, you know, that secret world of his that he's built, you know, both for his family, his multitude of children, and I think in his own head as well. I think there's probably a lot going on in there, so that, you know, he keeps hidden away from everybody else. He'd have to. I think he's so far out and so audacious and threatening to so many models of how things are done, that he couldn't be vulnerable and survive for long. So, yeah. Again, too, I think that's why there's been an urgency in him developing his own management style, and there's so much feedback that comes back and forth about that. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, and that goes back to that Mercury sitting on the ascendant right there, because the Mercury is at 14 degrees and the ascendant's at 13 degrees.
Yeah.
So they're like literally right on top of each other, and then with the moon there to shine a light on everything. You know, like I said before, with Elon Musk, he's going to speak his mind. I mean, we all know that, whether it makes any sense or not, whether it makes any sense to us, and it makes sense to him. He's going to speak his mind, and that's what the Mercury tells me. And the fact that he's got his South Node in the first house, that's why he's so comfortable doing it, because it looks like in his past life, maybe, you know, maybe he was the ruler of something, and maybe, you know, being that it's in Leo, maybe that's why he is comfortable by default, you know, being in the public eye.
Yeah, see, I don't know how comfortable he really is at the end of the day. You're right. I think his CEO persona is strong, but his personal persona as well. You see when he talks, especially watch his face and his body language when he finishes a sentence. In a situation where there could be pushback or saying something quite confrontational, he'll talk and then he'll withdraw. You watch his mouth, the way it kind of purses, like he's expecting a backlash. There's almost that expectation of pain. I think you see that speech. I was watching him talk when they were talking about the rorts that are happening in the social security system over in the US that they uncovered and things like that too. And the other guy that was on stage with him was so eloquent and so directed, and he seemed trying to get in that conversation. Then he didn't know how to activate himself in that conversation as well. Watched him on Rogan, you know, when he's talking to Joe Rogan before the election, and you watch him when he cracks a joke and things like that. At the end of that too, you know, he'll suddenly realize, you know, like he's out there, and you'll just see him withdraw. He'll withdraw when he does it. And it's in his body language and his face and all of that sort of stuff. It's an interesting contradiction there, but you know, you're right. I think he does have a public persona that's refined, and that is strong, you know, and that's probably one of the most notorious things we hear pushback about is his management style, the way he manages his staff. And things like that. And the country now, he's managing a country to a degree. But, you know, I think that vulnerable little boy side's in there too. He like you said, he got beat up, put in hospital when he was a kid. He went to the US, he moved there to avoid military service. Because he's just not made for the military, you know. They would have beaten him alive. So he left Pretoria and went to the US and went straight into university, and then left university straight away to start a company. So that mutable energy is strong. It's very, very strong in this chart. But his cardinal energy too is the rails that chaotic train is riding on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've got the third house.
And he's in a rush.
Yeah, that Pluto. Yeah, he's in a rush. He's in a hurry to get things done. And he really is. And not only is he in a hurry, but he is accomplishing those goals.
Well, he's building the rails under him as he goes. You know what I mean? Because he's going where nobody's gone. So, and that's that Aquarius architect, literally, with Mars, moving at breakneck speed in whatever direction. When he first started, people must have thought he was a fool, until all of a sudden he's the richest man in the world. And people still talk about him like he's a fool and an upstart, but he's still building and moving, So he's got a thick skin.
Yeah, but his communication style, I think what I was going to say, being in the third house, having Uranus and Pluto, I think that's where maybe there's a disconnect, like we were talking about when he does talk, and of course he has revealed, that he is a little is it neurodivergent? Is that what the new word is? I don't know. But he's very, very intelligent, but he's not quite like Rain Man. If you guys know who Rain Man is, I don't know, that may be too, very old, but kind of, and that's who, when I first heard of Elon Musk and when he first came onto the scene and he, and I heard him talk, I thought, well, he's like Rain Man, just a little, not quite as, he's not that far over. So, but very, very intelligent. And so that's how he talks, when he speaks, it's like the words are in his head and they're coming out. But the Uranus and the Pluto together, maybe not jumble them up, but make them more of a forced, to where when he speaks, instead of, when we speak, certain words we emphasize certain words. Well, he doesn't do that. He just says the words and they come out and that's it. You know what I mean? And then he might giggle. So I think that may have something to do with the third house where he's got those two energies playing out. Because Uranus, as you know, is unpredictable. And you never know with Uranus.
Alien.
And then Pluto is alien. Exactly.
It is alien. And Pluto.
Yeah, and
Pluto and his communication style. There's nothing comforting about the words he says.
Right. And it is very alien. And I mean, people have even joked and said he was an alien. I mean, let's be honest. We all saw him at the when they were swearing in Trump, and he looked like he was getting a download. So
if he pulled his face off and there was an alien underneath with the year that we've had, I don't think that'd surprise anybody.
I don't think it would surprise anybody at all. And who knows? That could be what's going on. I mean, we don't really know what's going on. We're all just here. Just trying to figure out what's going on. Well, I know I am. But anyway, so then I see the fifth house, and both of those planets are retrograde. We've got Jupiter and we've got Neptune. And that is Scorpio and Sagittarius. So his Jupiter is in Scorpio at 27 degrees retrograde, and his Neptune is literally at 0 degrees retrograde. So it's also right there, right on top of that Jupiter, which tells me that, well, the way I look at it, since Jupiter's the bigger planet, it kind of overpowers Neptune. So it amplifies, the Neptune qualities, the dreaminess, he's a dreamer, obviously. He has to be, to come up with all of the ideas that he's come up with and created the companies that he's created. So that Jupiter and that Neptune right there together in the fifth house, the house of creativity. And let's not forget the house of children. The fifth house. We've got a lot of kids, and so there's Jupiter, and it was in an unconventional way. There's that Neptune. You can just see it right there. To me, that's what I see. What do y'all see?
Pluto in the third house also rules Scorpio, which is Jupiter in the fifth house. And when we look at him, I mean, and those two pointing up with those two quincunxes go right up to the midheaven up there, and they form a yod. So here's somebody he's using Plutonian energy to race into the future. And when he talks, I think he's such an innovator But a lot of his innovations, I think, are threatening to existing industries and existing technologies and existing paradigms. That when he opens his mouth, when he does something, when he communicates, it must sound like the apocalypse to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, people fear what they don't understand.
Well, people fear what can take away their business too. They're, you know what I mean? And now he's in a key position where he's going through and basically auditing the way things are run and reshaping them too. And for a lot of people, that must feel like the apocalypse. I think for a lot of the opposition, you know, in the last election, we saw a real clash of ideologies. And the ideologies are not compatible with each other. And now somebody with all this Pluto, Virgo, Scorpio energy is going through and auditing all of that ruthlessly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He hasn't said anything that's comforting other than we're saving enormous amounts of money while we're doing it. And that, you know what I mean? That's easy for alarm bells to go off when somebody's doing that. He's powerful and he's rich enough and to pretty much be unrestrained. You know what I mean? There's no one who can really stop him. And now he's in an environment where he can go forward. And that must be terrifying to some people. That must be extremely threatening to some people. I think that Yod's what he's here to do. That's what he's about. You know, whether he, and I don't think it's personal. I think he's just hardwired to do that.
To save the world.
Well, not even to save the world. I think he's just, we got cardinal immutable energy moving at an incredible pace. I think he's just racing for the horizon. I think. I don't know if there's any real ethical restraints that were on him before or could be on him now. And by saying that, I'm not implying that anything he's doing is unethical. But he's so powerful. He's such a juggernaut now. You know.
Well, I think that he believes. Well, I think that
Neptune.
From what? Yeah, so he believes, Neptune, that what he's doing is for the greater good, and that he is contributing to making the world a better place through his inventions, through his companies, through all of his ideas, through, you know, the children that he's bringing into the world, and through all of the stuff that he does. The Virgo moon in the second house tells me that he has to feel like he is making a difference. He's got to feel like he is contributing. He's got that's what makes him that gives his life value. You know, and we spoke earlier about the way he grew up, and, you know, he wasn't the favored child. He was the opposite. You know, he was the black sheep. So nature versus nurture comes into play, in my opinion. And that's, you know, that's a drive that drives people. Pain and suffering will drive you to be the best you can.
At the same time, that's a horrific weakness in the capitalist system that we can have this. It's, in some ways, it's Bill Gates 2.0. You know, I mean, more power to Bill Gates. At one stage, he was the richest man in the world, but he had the same amount of money as the 48% of poorest Americans. You know, one man had all of this. And people used to say he was a philanthropist, that he could, you know, he invested millions of dollars in different organizations and different things like that. But he chose what they were. There was no oversight on him. You know what I mean? And again, the choices that he made were based on his own nature versus nurture, his own environmental factors growing up, his own values and things like that, which again put him outside the oversight of governments and agencies that we've seen are obviously inefficient. If Elon Musk is if there's truth in what he's saying, but at the same time, they're closer to the human condition than he is. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that always worries me when I see something on a chart like this, that all this money and all this power comes to one person and then they decide where it goes and things like that. And I think, especially too, when you've got that pattern there, when you've got Jupiter and Scorpio, that's conjunct Neptune, you're right. I think the more he does it, the better he is at what he does. And he gets feedback that it's making change and making a difference in the world. So it becomes a self-validating belief system. Okay, I'm doing good. But he's only doing good against his own values and his own beliefs. Now, and none of those of what I've said am I implying at all that he's doing anything that's unethical or not in the interests of anybody. But what I'm saying is we've got this incredibly powerful Yod. And remember that Yods are on charts for people all the time, but most people don't do anything with them at all. This is a super activated self-feeding yod that's pointed directly at the future. You know, and it may be a future we want, it may not be a future that we want. And we've got a person who's so powerful at manifesting their belief systems and stuff like that, that love it or hate it, we're all going to be pulled along for that ride. You know,
Yep.
me, look, I think, you know, my position, I'm essentially an astrological anarchist. I think if, I think things can't go on the way they've gone on. And here's somebody who's so thoroughly and completely shaken up the script that we're in uncharted territory. We're moving at breakneck speed to uncharted territory. We could literally have people living on Mars in 4 years. If he says that's his goal, I believe he can do it. Do we want that? You know, let's just take a second. The more I hear about billionaires talking about, hey, let's get off Earth, the more I start to think, well, shit, well, what does he know that I don't about Earth? You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So in this urgency, Betsos has got it as well. They want to get the hell off this planet, you know?
Yeah, you're right. And that
which again takes us to a model when we're on another planet with the same people doing the same things. So somewhere along this ride, I just wonder, you know, will we have the opportunity to do what he does so well, which is audit the choices that are being made right now and say, well, is this really what we want? You know, this million, are they a favored million? What's going to happen after that? What happens to the other? I mean, we're getting close to 30 billion people now. That's not even 1% of the human race. So I'm inflating those figures. It's rounded up. So
I thought we had 8 billion people on the planet.
I don't know. Yeah, I could be way off.
Yeah,
I probably am. So
that's still too many. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not saying it's too many.
I know exponentially,
what I mean.
We're growing at a rate that's unsustainable, and I think maybe that's what's doing this. And it's capitalist thinking, like capitalists thinking, well, A, that's unsustainable. B, we've got a spreadsheet for that, and the figures say that within 5 to 10 years we're dead. C, I can't make money off this model. D, with that amount of people and that amount of poverty that we're looking at, things like that, money's not going to be worth anything in 5 years anyway. You know, because the problems that we've got are so complex and so uncontrollable. What's money going to do about it except make us more comfortable while it's all coming apart? So that's my personal rant. I'm not for or against Trump. Oh God, that was telling. Elon Musk in any way about what he's doing. In a lot of ways, I'm all for it. I think he's the techno-anarchist we've been waiting for. But what I'm saying is where he's going, we don't have a choice. We're going there. We're going there.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. And so either
what do you think, Antoinette? What's jumping out at you? What's jumping out at you on the chart? Anything?
When you said he wants to go to Mars quickly, and I saw Mars with the North Node. Like that's where he wants to go. And he'll probably go there very quickly. I like he's on a rocket ship to Mars, the way it looks. And he's not coming back. I don't see him coming back. What had stood out to me is how dominant Mercury is. And that's understandable, you know, because it's conjunct the AC. It's the ruler of his 12th house, you know, and the sun is in the 12th house, so everything, and then the moon is in Virgo, so there's a lot of, I've made a note, I said, Mercury is dominant, 4 planets ruled by Mercury, because Pluto is also in Virgo. So what else did I see here? Yeah, I'm always interested to see when the rule of the ascendant is in the 12th house. Because once I learned that to get to person to find themselves, they need the key is the ruler of the chart. And when the sun is in the 12th house, it's hard to get to the person or for them to find themselves.
Yeah.
But the ruler is the key to open it. So is there a sextile between the moon and the sun?
Yes. And that's the only aspect on the moon that I can see.
My goodness.
So that's just obfuscated that even more, you know.
Oh, just a quick thing. Is the time, it's at 8 o'clock Santiago time or 9 o'clock? Because I thought it was 9 o'clock. That's why I'm late. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think
So
we've
it's
just daylight savings has just happened, so everybody's knocked out. We had that happen at the last one as well. People turned up an hour after. We may have even had people turn up an hour before, hang around and think, well, what the hell, and go about their days.
ah, yeah,
You
well,
know,
now
Well,
I know.
it was
Now
funny.
I
We
know
had
because
people all
I
suddenly
set my
rocking up
alarm
in
for
an
9
hour,
o'clock.
all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready for it to start. And we were winding up. Yeah.
so I have a question. So if Cancer rules the first house, doesn't that mean that isn't the moon the ruler of Cancer?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that make wouldn't that make the moon like the chart ruler technically?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's in Virgo, which, like you said, is ruled by Mercury, which brings us back to the Mercury in the first house on the ascendant, sitting right there close to the sun. So that goes back to
Yes,
his communication style. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
but he's
cool.
got two chart rulers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's
he's
neat.
got mutual reception.
Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. Okay, thank you, Antoinette, for pointing that out.
I just saw it.
Oh, that's yeah.
I just
Well,
saw it, so that's interesting.
well, yeah, but it just goes back to, like I said, that Mercury, that's what keeps jumping out at me because it's just so close to that sun.
Yeah.
So
Rolling that Virgo.
So
And there's a
there's
lot of
two
that.
chart rulers
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
because when Mercury is so close to the degree of the ascendant, it kind of takes over the chart ruler because it's like even
Yeah.
more important than the moon. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you deal with moon as a chart ruler because it moves so quickly.
But that's consistent with what we know about him, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, good one. Yeah. See, that's
Yeah,
a good
very good.
point. Yep.
Yep. Also, with the moon in Virgo, it's like his mind is very structured, organized, or detailed, analytical. He's very neat. Is he a neat freak?
Of course.
No,
He has to be, right?
not
14
really.
kids.
All my children got moon in Virgo, and but maybe sometimes it happens, you know.
I don't know. I don't know that about him actually. I did learn a
Oh,
lot about him, but
I did find
okay.
something interesting about him because I'm always looking at the degree of the sun. So I say 5 degrees. So I said, what happened to Elon Musk when he was 5 years old? And I Googled it and I found something and I'm going to share it with you.
Okay.
I put, what happened to Elon Musk at 5 years old? And it said at the age of 5, Elon Musk experienced a severe beating after an altercation with another student, resulting in hospitalization and subsequent reprimands from his father. This incident, along with his difficult relationship with his father, shaped his drive and ambition, according to his biography. His childhood was marked by unsupervised periods where he engaged in activities like making explosive, building rockets, showcasing his early fascination with technology. So what I did is I looked at the transits for him at 5 years,
Wow.
and Pluto was conjunct Uranus.
Shit.
Wow.
That might have activated that yod right then.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. That beating activated that yacht
Triggered
and
him.
made it to
Yeah.
where, yeah, dedefinitely. I didn't realize it was 5, Antoinette. That is so cool because I did know that he was
Well, that's not
involved,
cool.
you know. Well, it's cool.
Just say we
What's
do not
cool
condone
is
childhood violence.
no. What's cool is the fact that she was able to look at the
Yeah,
sun and it
nail
being
it.
at 5 degrees, and so this is why astrology is so I mean it's literal sometimes. I mean you can literally look at it and you can this is his blueprint. These are the cards he was dealt. These are his default settings. So
Oh,
no, I didn't
there's
know.
the transit. I wrote it down. It says Pluto conjunct Uranus in the third house, and it was almost 9 degrees. It was Pluto 8 degrees and 57 minutes. So it was almost on top of Uranus. And his sun, it was Sun, Moon, and Venus in the 12th house, coming up to the ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we know that the 4th house is ruled by Pluto. So it was, and Mars was in Leo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Which was his first house, his house of identity, right?
Yeah.
So it was yeah, coming up to the south node. So it was interesting to check that out. It's like,
Right.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And what you said too was particularly interesting to me was that he immediately started developing explosives, rockets, all of that sort of stuff. But he did it in private, so that was his solution to the situation that he was in, was to withdraw and to develop and to research and to learn and stuff like that. And he did it out of the public sight. He did it away from everybody else. And that it's kind of is a really interesting way of expressing that 12th house,
Yes.
that second house moon, that Mercury there in the first house. And that's become me, I look at a lot of astrology charts as an engine, and that's provided the impetus for this engine. You know what I mean? It's all been developed in the outside the public eye. It's been done in private. It's been done to fuel something for himself. And then it's activated this yod down the bottom. And we look at this 5th house here, we've got this, and it's getting him results. It's getting him in the future that he wants. So it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, and things like that. Both of those planets sitting in the 5th house are in opposition to Saturn up there in the 11th house. So there's always going to be public scrutiny. There's always going to be kickback and criticism. He'll always be at odds with authorities in whatever field that he decides to step in. But he's not operating in the public arena. He's doing everything in private. He's got his own ideas of what he wants to do. He's got his own projects. He's developing them outside the public eye and then releasing them when he's ready, And now we're getting the benefit of him at least warning us about what he's going to do next, but he's not telling us or showing us how he's going to do it. We're waiting for leaks from disgruntled workers and speculation from media and all of this sort of stuff. It's still all happening in private, but it's happening fast, So, yeah. He's probably got a doomsday device he developed at the age of 11, sitting somewhere in his house, that he built in his shed in Pretoria. So,
Jeez.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, so maybe part of his being this private person is like Mars in the 8th and then Venus and the Sun in the 12th.
Yeah.
Because the ruler of the 4th is in the 12th. So it's like maybe when he was a child, maybe that's why he spent a lot of time alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it's like, it's funny, because the 12th house is very spiritual. And the Sun is like, maybe gets God protection. I don't know. Sun in the 12th house. It's like, but definitely I think, Uranus in the 3rd house is a signature of, it could be some mental imbalance that he has, but he's learned to work around it, because they say he's autistic. Is he for real? Or
there's something going on there.
I think that according to the autobiography, and I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this. I think that they said something. I think they said Asperger's more than autism.
Okay.
So, which is
Steve Jobs I think Steve Jobs had Asperger's too.
A lot of successful people have Asperger's, actually. I used to work for a doctor whose son, had it, and he was very successful. So, I don't really know. Obviously, it affects your speech pattern and your mannerisms and so forth and so on.
Right.
But I think that's it. I think that's all that it affects.
Like very static.
So on the inside.
Oh, sorry. Continue. No,
I was just going to say, on the inside, everything's going through his brain, but to get it to come out, because of the Asperger's.
Yeah, because if he's channeling Uranus, he's channeling the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easy for him to do it in a Mercury house.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So what he wanted to say, it's hard for them to grasp because it's like we talked about Uranus being so alien and everything. So yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
What were you
What
going to
would
say,
we look
Damien?
for if we're looking for alien?
Yeah.
Uranus.
Yeah.
I have Uranus in the first house at 2 degrees of Scorpio.
No way, no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's continue. What were you going to say, Damien?
It's electric.
Boogie, woogie,
Oh, I don't want to say that.
I think we've seen that too, haven't we? Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna run down.
Yeah, he's a super interesting dude though, for real. I mean, whether you love him or hate him, and I mean, there are lots of people that hate his guts, and that's their priority or prerogative or whatever the word is. There's lots of people that love him, and there's just lots of people like me that are just like, I'm just very interested in what he's going to do next. I mean, I'm just like, got my popcorn, and I'm like, what's next? What's next?
No,
You know,
I'm in awe of him. I mean, I can't say anything
yeah.
about him. I don't even know him, but he's certainly brilliant, and I don't see where he's actually mistreated anybody or hurt anybody, or have this kind of personality. I just love to watch him in interviews, though, how he shuts
Mhm.
people down.
Yeah, he's really good at that. I would like to say something because I know a lot of people, we talk about how he's got so many kids and so forth, but I looked into that, of course, and he does have 14 children with 4 women. However, his first child, and this is according to his autobiography, was stillborn. So after that happened, and you can imagine that was probably devastating, right? So after he had a stillborn child, or it died, I'm sorry, the child was born and then it died of SIDS or something along those lines, but the first child didn't make it. So that's when he decided that he was going to have medical, either IVF or that's why a couple of the baby mamas have triplets and a couple of them have twins because after he lost the first child, to SIDS, he said, I don't want to go through that again. So that's why he has so many kids. And he it's like a collaboration for him. He does want to father children and he wants to, because he is like a billionaire and he wants to share his wealth and share his I guess his genes. You know
The
what I mean?
only other
Um
person I know who got so much baby mothers and children is Bob Marley.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's not like so I just wanted to make that clear because initially I was like, guy, I mean, he got 4 baby mamas and 14 kids. I'm like, that's in a busy man, but it wasn't like that.
But when you said baby mother, when you said he's got like triplets and twins, does that mean that he has planned his parenthood? Like,
Right,
does it
exactly.
work,
So,
or is he active with his wives? You know what I
no,
mean?
Jupiter and Scorpio in the fifth house. More. So
right. But no, a couple of the children were born via surrogate.
yeah.
He's got 2 sets of triplets and 2 sets of twins from what I can remember. They were all born with IVF, the placement, of the eggs and the sperm and all
Idea.
that. Right.
In vitro.
So
In vitro. Yeah.
yeah, so
Okay,
it was
because I
it was
said
all very it was a medical uh procedure. After he lost the first child, to SIDS, he's like we talked about, he's the richest man in the world. He can literally do anything. At that point, he was like, you know what? I don't want to do that again. I want to make my own babies. And that's what he did. He made his own babies. He picked the women based on their, mind and what they do in the world, like one's an author. I mean, they're all very intelligent. They all have great, I'm sure they had to
there's
go
a
through a
movie
vein.
about that. There's a movie
What?
about that. Oh, what?
Well,
Which
anyway,
one?
so
But
I just wanted to bring that up because, like I said, when I first heard that he had 14 kids, I was appalled. I'll just tell you guys, I was just like, what? Because of course, I think very literally. So I think that he was out, just
me
having
too. I know what
14.
I thought. No,
I was like, man, I mean, does he got that much game even?
Yeah, like I
But
was
I guess
thinking
with
he's like Tom
IVF,
Jones.
with IVF,
But-
he technically doesn't have to be there for conception too.
well, no,
No.
but
It
see, I
just might
didn't
fit
know
into his
that.
schedule a little better, you know.
But it
Right.
makes
But
him look like he's
initially,
a
I
god
didn't.
anyway.
Yeah, I didn't know that. You know, of course, when you don't know about the IVF until you look into it, you just
Right.
think,
You just think
anyway,
he's
so
like so
he's out
fertile.
there. Yeah, he's a gigolo. He's out there just having a good old time, partying it up. But
But
no, you're right, Damon. A lot of it was done,
but
and that's what I'm saying. It was done in a lab or a medical, in a hospital or whatever. And
but
the pregnancies,
Also consistent with the spectrum too, you know, in its own bizarre way.
yeah.
When you look at
And
those
I'm
placements
sure,
on the chart, you know, it's just a more efficient way to do it.
right,
So
very
that's
efficient. And again, I'm sure that he was able to, you know, because I don't know if you guys have heard of CRISPR, where you can go in and actually take um, stuff out of, you know, like genes and so forth. Like if the, anyway, I'm sure that he utilized that in his creation of his
oh,
children.
he's got
So
his own
I
company,
don't,
shadow company.
right. I don't
Yeah.
think any of the children were just random. I think they were all, which is fine. I'm not judging. I mean, if you, whatever. I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, you shouldn't play God." I think God gave us the ability to do all this stuff. If He didn't want us doing it, then He wouldn't have, you know. So that's my thought process on that.
but it's not because he
Um,
wants to be a father, you think, or just he wants to
no, he
just
does want to be a father. No, he wants to be a father. He wants to have children.
I think there's
He's
beliefs
because he
always,
doesn't
attached
have
to it.
time.
If
You
he's
don't
got
have time.
yes, he does.
Neptune in the fifth house next to Jupiter, I think there's a belief system attached to it.
Yeah,
You know,
probably because
and they're
the
living in a
first wife,
pseudo, like in a camp, they call it some sort of camp. They're all together, so
It's a
it's
compound.
almost
Yeah,
pseudo
it's perfect.
cultish in a
oh,
way.
very
So
good. I'm glad
Yeah.
to hear. When
So
yeah,
he's
everybody
seeing
has their
yeah.
own
So they're not
house.
all,
Yeah.
you know, they're not like, you know, he never sees them and they're just
It
anonymous kids.
it's not like
Okay.
he just had four
While they're
baby
somewhere.
mamas and he had a bunch of kids and he just left them and went
Yeah,
out for milk one night and didn't come back.
didn't
It
come
Oh,
was
back.
a
thank God.
planned process.
I was beginning to worry. I was
It
beginning
was a
to
planned
worry.
process. Everybody's got their own mansion on the compound and he takes care of everybody. All the kids, you know. I mean, yeah,
You know,
from
it's funny because if it wasn't Elon Musk, we just call him a promiscuous man. But
well, but
since
he's
it's
not
Well,
promiscuous
it wouldn't be
because he's not
promiscuous if he was housing and keeping them all, though. Promiscuous men move on, don't they?
right.
So,
well, I
Yeah,
you know,
didn't know he
he's
was keeping them all.
he's
I
just a
thought he was
greedy
just
man.
having them.
It's you know,
no,
knows what he likes.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't know if that's more noble.
he's creating a legacy. Let's be honest. That's why we have our
Quickly.
children, is to carry on. And
Yeah.
yeah, quickly. And why shouldn't he? I mean, he's got
He's
four.
got them all. If he can afford it, he can afford it,
He
of course.
can,
For
and
the
the children
children
will
of his
all be
children of
taken
his
care
children of
of.
his children.
And the children are our future. And I hate to tell y'all, but I don't know about what it's like where you guys are, but a lot of the kids around here in America, I hate to think that they're going to be our future.
We've
So
got a
I
massive
hope Elon does have more
we got
kids.
a massive spike in youth crime here in Australia. It's right across
Yeah,
the
it's
country.
bad.
So the government's basically disengaged the youth. You know, they're no longer really building incentives or anything or futures for the youth here anymore. So we're seeing youth violence, we're seeing youth burglaries and all of this sort of stuff. They're documenting it and putting it up on social media, you know, breaking into people's houses and stuff like that. So, you know, you look at those placements on the chart there, you look at those oppositions running up to Saturn in the public eye, you know, up there in the 11th house down to that stuff that's going on in the 5th. You look at that yod that's got Pluto, you know, those really strong Pluto placements and things like that. You look at his first house, all of that sort of stuff. Almost everything he does is going to be confrontational to the norm, to the accepted way of doing things. And somewhere along in this whole dialogue, and we're even doing it now, is we're all suddenly turning around and saying, well, how good is the conventional way of doing things? Is it really that good? You know what I mean? So, and I can't help but feel that that's really been the theme of Pluto moving into Aquarius so far. You know, we're really starting to cast this very cold and harsh eye on public norms and stuff like that and ask ourselves, well, is this really what we want? Is this really what we need? Because, you know, we're circling the drain in a lot of areas.
That's a fact right there.
Yeah.
Right. Pluto's
doing this?
heading into Aquarius.
Yeah. And here's a guy, again, too, who's been charged for, 100 days to go and find ways to cut the fat and the tumors off the American economy, and he's doing it.
Yeah. And
this
people
is
are
the
getting
person
mad
you have
about
to-
it.
This is what you need. You need a dispassionate alien who's going to come in and just look at it as some sort of biomass rather than feelings and futures and things like that, and cut it down in a way that it'll still be alive at the end of it, but it'll be leaner and faster and more self-sustaining, you know.
Yeah, well, basically, that's that Virgo moon in the second house, like we spoke about before, compartmentalized. He's analytical. He's able to take things and put them into boxes and break them down, you know?
And there's the Pluto yacht. He's able to then take a scalpel and cut away.
Yeah.
It is. It's all for the future. It's all pointed at the future. We can't reach the future. We've got this, so I'm going to cut it off. We can't reach the future. We've got that. I'm going to cut it off, you know. And it is inhuman. It is inhuman, probably the way he's doing it. I'm hearing about suicides happening on the border, you know, with border guards. I'm hearing about all these jobs lost, but I'm also hearing about people that are stepping up and helping the process too, who are within the system, because they know that the way things have been run is wrong, you know. And that's
Suicides on the border.
With some of the border guards, it's come out. We've been hearing about it in the news over here and things like that. I think they've been starting to put scrutiny on the borders down there between Mexico and the US, and starting to audit what's been going on down there. There've been some suicides reported and things like that. I'm just telling you the news we're hearing over here. So
the border guards are committing suicide, or the people trying to cross?
I think the inference there is they may have been involved with coyotes and human trafficking and things like that. And as the orders get closer and closer to the bone, you know, all these cows are starting to come home. So, you know, that's just like, you know, the news we've been hearing over here. So, yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
These conversations, because a lot of the things we're hearing, even what you said about Sharon and Netanyahu, how about people over there don't know anything about them. Netanyahu's the president of Israel. He's got everything to do with what's happening in Palestine right now.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they're not talking
about they're part of American politics right now, and your impact on the world is based around policies that Trump's had and the deals that he's making with these guys. So,
but they're being very they're choosing what they tell us, you know what I mean? They're not telling us everything. So, and that's why, right? We're look, and here's what's going on in America. They hide that stuff by doing things like sending these women to space. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how they distract the American people, and they do, and the Americans. Now we've got all of America trying to figure out if Katy Perry really went to space or not. And really, who cares? But it's a thing, and that's the big thing over here right now. Everybody's forgotten about, you know, the important things that we need to be focusing on. And that's the big talk at the moment. So that's how they keep the Americans at bay. They just keep them entertained.
Yeah. Well, I no longer feel like a plastic bag blowing in the wind. Now I know Katy Perry's been in space.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, well, look, there are people. Look, there are people that say that I've seen people say things like, at least I'm not stupid enough to believe Katy Perry went to space. And I'm over here going, well, I mean, did she go to space? I don't know. She looked like she went, I don't know. So it's one of those, you know, I mean, obviously it's something that we can do. I mean, they just went up to the atmosphere and floated for 2 minutes and then just came right back down. I don't know why everybody's making such a big deal out of it. She didn't really go to space. She went up and then she came back down. Her and a bunch of other chicks. I don't even know why they're making such a big deal out of her.
We don't even know if that's real, because now we're hearing that the visit to the moon was set up by Stanley Kubrick.
I know. And that's the point. So of course you have 50% of the people saying, oh, this is a hoax. And the other 50% are going, no, it's not. And that's where it doesn't matter what it is. They're dividing us. It's always about division. Whatever they can introduce to just keep us busy and keep us arguing about things is what we do.
Doesn't take much.
I have a question about this chart.
Yeah.
I found something. I found the ruler of the AC moon is squaring the ruler of the DC, Saturn.
Okay.
The moon and Saturn are squaring, right?
I don't see it. The moon, Virgo
No,
moon.
I only see the moon making one
I
aspect,
only
and
see
it's
one
that
aspect,
sex.
that
Or
semi-square.
is
Yeah.
it trining? Or is it trining? It's
I
8
think
The moon's
degrees
only
Virgo.
making-
Pluto down the bottom there. Pluto
Yeah.
is trining.
Yeah, it's square.
Yeah,
It's then
it's Pluto.
the moon is squaring Saturn.
Yeah.
And so the moon is like this a family thing.
I can't see the square.
So the moon is not squaring Saturn. Saturn is squaring Jupiter. Oh
Not
no,
squaring
that's
because-
no, that's
because
Mercury
it's a-
squaring Chiron. My apologies.
Well, I don't know what orbs you use, but I use 8. So for
Okay,
me, it's like
okay.
a square, but it's just the moon is like, because the moon is always moving, so it's hard to capture. But I would call it a square. So like relationships are not easy for him, I would say,
Hmm.
or something having to do with how he saw his parents,
I think you're right.
the parents' relationship, something.
Yeah.
No,
he used
you're
to go with-
right.
Yeah.
I think
Yes,
your
I
orbs
think
are a little
that-
bigger than what I use, but I'd give you that one. Saturn and the moon, they're pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, his
there's
dad
a whole
was
lot of
his father. I can't recall exactly what he did, but his father was
Engineer.
pretty. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So he was pretty pretty intelligent and pretty resourceful himself. So
wow.
I think
Okay.
obviously, yeah.
That's probably where Elon got the materials to make his explosives as a child.
Yeah.
Garage. Blasting
Yep.
caps and dynamites and gelignites, you know.
Hold on. I'm going to copy it into the chat so you can see it. Hold on. Chat. Yeah. Can you see?
Kind of. Hang on.
Everything is underlined, but anyway.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Yep.
And his father didn't take his side, apparently.
Yes, well, that's another thing that really shaped him and gave him the drive, from
Yes.
what I understand.
Yeah.
Wow. And it
Is
says
the
here,
lack-
this incident gave him the drive and ambition.
Mm-hmm.
According to-
Yeah,
No, what
he
it also
basically.
did is it removed a potential restraint as well. It removed tradition, it removed obligation, removed expectation, took all of those things away, and essentially let him operate as a force of one, you know, without that oversight in a way. I guess it depends on how you look at it, and I think maybe that's the way he looked at it.
Yeah, and it is Mars right beside the North Node. That's really powerful.
And if the Saturn represents the father on this chart, then those oppositions to that fifth house activity going on down there make a lot of sense. He's doing things his way.
Yeah, and the fact that the father is high up in the chart.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know, he's towering over his, and Neptune in the fifth house and the childhood, it like could have been, yeah, it's like kind of lonely.
Doesn't matter
Or-
what he
or
does,
very-
he'll never be good enough. Doesn't matter what he achieves, he'll never feel like it's enough. That's so he'll
Right.
keep moving and moving, you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's how he has to, that's what he does to fill that void that his father left in him by the way he treated him when he was young. And
What you said, Antoinette, too, that he got really badly beaten up at 5 years old, and that rather than take his side, his father actually turned on him in that regard, too.
Yes,
For a child, that is a really pivotal moment, too, I think. You know, you expect
yes,
you the people you love, your family, your parents especially, to take your side and protect you in a situation like that. So for his father to turn on
exactly,
him,
exactly.
yeah,
which
You know,
made
the people-
him
You expect unconditional.
which made him want to be a father because he didn't have a father that he felt
Ah,
was adequate.
yeah,
Mhm.
probably. Right. Well, that's the job, we try to do it better to better the future.
Yeah.
That's
You know what?
stretching
And
out the
there's
door.
that trine running from Saturn up there down to Pluto again in the third house, activating that yod. So again, that's a double whammy, that's an extra impact on that event in his life, triggering at 5 years old,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I Googled it, I said, "Oh my God!" I wasn't expecting to find something, because
Yeah.
I just typed random. What happened to him at 5? And then I said, "Let me check the transit." And yeah, the Pluto was on top of the Uranus.
And so we know that because of the books that have been written. So, when we do these charts say, for example, we do these charts, we sometimes do them for great members. And we know this about Elon. We don't have to ask Elon, right? So he can't deny it. He can't say, "Oh, nothing happened to me at 5." But, this is an example of something happened. You know what I mean? Like I have an 11-degree sun and something happened at age 11. A lot of times people don't want to talk about it or go into that, but I
Oh,
mean, it's obvious, and here we are. It's in black and white. We've got the sun at 5 degrees. We've got this happened when he was 5. I mean,
we're just
you
testing it. We don't
you
even know if
can't,
it's working. I just read it somewhere that,
yeah, well, no, I know, and we talked
Doesn't
about
that
this
feel good
before.
as an
Hmm.
astrologer, though? It's nice to be right, isn't it?
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
And
it
have
feels
those
like,
unexpected hits come in like that. It's like when you're working with a client, you say, and so what happened around this time, or what happened in this part of your life in your childhood and things like that, and then you see their expression change, and you've hit on something there. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? It's all part and
yes,
parcel of what you
it's
do. Yeah,
yes, and it happens with the North Node. Like if somebody has North Node in Pisces, and you say, what happened 19 years ago or 18 years ago, and they say, "Oh my God," this
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly, and so it's coming around again.
yeah.
So yeah, I knew someone who had cancer, right? Cancer rising with the sun in the 12th, and they had addiction problems.
Right. Wow.
So and Venus too. Well, not Venus. Venus is there, but I always, when I see Venus in the 12th house, you know
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So baby mother,
And
heavy
it's in
baby mother,
Gemini,
too many,
right? In
many baby
Gemini,
mothers.
right, which obviously goes right along what we were talking
Oh
about with,
God, I hope he
more
never
than
gets to one.
one.
I hope he never gets
More
to
than
one.
one.
More than one. He's flirty, flirty. So that's good for him. But yeah,
Well,
cancer men are very loving, I don't know.
yes,
But
and you're right about that. I was actually married to a Cancer man, and here's the kicker, Antoinette, you're not going to believe this. His birthday was June the 28th. My son's father. Yeah, June the 28th. And he was very, he always used to talk, and he didn't know astrology. This was years and years and years ago. My son's now about to be 22. I mean, he's since passed, so God rest his soul. But either way, he didn't know astrology, but he would talk to me a lot and tell me that he felt like it's so weird. And I always thought, well, that's strange. But he always tell me he felt like he had the armor of God on him. You know what I mean? And he would always say that, and he would go on and on about it, and I just think, all
oh,
right, well, whatever. This was way after we split and divorced or whatever. I just thought, whatever. But then as I looked into, got into more into astrology, and I looked at his birth chart, and then with the Cancer and the shell I thought, well, wow, that's kind of strange. I mean, he couldn't have known that. He couldn't have known that Cancer is kind of like, having armor on you.
yes,
But
maybe he had it
he
with Mars.
kept, I can't recall, but and like I said, he kept saying he had this overwhelming feeling that he had on God's armor, and that's what he called it. And I thought, well, okay, that's
Or
cool,
fighting in God's army or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he was a Cancer, and it didn't occur to me until, years later. I was like, oh, but yeah, so he had the exact same birthday as Elon Musk. Now, he was nowhere near as intelligent as Elon Musk. He was like the opposite. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But good guy, I mean, at one point. But yeah, that Cancer energy, a lot of times it's internalized. And I think that because it's internalized, they have difficulty expressing and being vulnerable, and it can sometimes cause a lot of depression, addiction. He was heavily addicted to sedatives and stuff like that. Just I guess he was always trying to calm his mind. I don't know. But yeah, so that was interesting when I noticed the birth date was the same. And so I was able to relate a little bit of how Elon kind of keeps to himself and kind of keeps that kind of tough persona, kind of like the crab. But like I said before, I think if you poke at him, just like the crab, he's got those pinchers. And so I think that's how this guy is too. Which, I mean, we've seen it before. Somebody said something to piss him off, like you said earlier, Antoinette, and he'll jump back at you. He doesn't stand down because he doesn't have to. He's not 5 years old anymore. He's got a gabillion dollars.
And this Tim Walz
Yeah,
found out it's also got a lot of
give
good
you all the
lawyers
power
too.
you need, all the power you need.
Yeah, money is power, and when you're 5 years old and you're beat to the point where you're put in the hospital, and then your dad basically makes you feel like it's your fault. So, and then the rest of your life dotes on your brother and basically makes it known that he's the favorite. I mean, yeah, that was his fuel, obviously.
The dad, well, they say the son is also the father. So maybe the father was hiding something too.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, something like that. Yeah, he had two choices, either to go inside and never come out and stay an introvert the rest of his life, or show them. And that Mars sitting right there next to that North Node in Aquarius, that Aquarius is a rebellious energy. We are the anarchists, and we are the rule breakers, and we will show you. So the fact that he's got Mars and the North Node right there, that was his fuel.
Yes, and it's like he's like, I'm going to lead humanity.
Absolutely.
If Mars is in Aquarius, it's like he's alone against Rome, and everybody's attacking him, and he's on the front line, and the North Node is there, like, this is my mission, and he's all alone over there. The rest of the planets just fall away.
Yeah. And that's probably how he feels a lot. You know what I mean? And if he didn't have all the money that he has, he probably would be all alone all the time. You know what I mean? So,
but Elon spells loan in a certain way.
Yeah, you're right.
Loan,
So I think that he wanted to make
Loan.
sure that he never, I'm sure he didn't ever want to feel like that again. So even at age 5, those are our formative years. 0 to 7 is when, we're being programmed initially. That's our base program. So
it's like God set it up that way, that he would have some kind of trauma that would put him out
propel.
Yeah, because it's all set up. When you look at the chart, it's like, claro, something is going to happen at some time that's going to put him into, because it's all, I don't know how much free will we have, really, when I start to look at astrology, because it's like, it's
kind of faded. His chart is very faded.
I don't have any doubt at all. I think in a lot of ways, astrology convinced me of free will. I've said it before. I could not work with astrology if I thought it was deterministic. I mean, there are a multitude of choices here. There are a multitude of choices here. He's taken the 1% choice, because most people just don't choose to strive and to work as hard as he did. Most people don't make that choice. That's
right. I read once Yeah, where the free will is God give us free will so that we can make mistakes.
This is the same as being a professional bodybuilder. You can't do this overnight. You can't download it. You can't cheat. You can't lie about it. Once you started, you've got to maintain it because it'll stop straight away if you don't. It's like building muscle. And technologically, and as far as future building goes, he's pretty damn buff because he's worked pretty damn hard to do this. You can't fake this. So it's not just one choice that was made. It's a continuous series of choices to keep going forward. And that's why he's as powerful as he is. He makes a choice every day, every time. And now he's at the stage when he makes a choice, it influences the futures of countless people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
yes.
It's I think there's what we saw is one event that happened that he didn't choose. And then we've just seen a cascade of choices happening since then.
So I guess you guys think it's a good thing that he's actually no longer working with Donald Trump? Maybe he just didn't have the time.
Well, he said he was going to be there for 100 days. That was his promise. So right at the beginning. So that's my understanding of what happened. But who knows? Who knows? I don't pretend to understand either of those people. They're alien to me. Operating at 11. If I met Elon Musk, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? His consciousness and the level he's operating at is so alien to mine. How can we possibly have a conversation? So I don't begin to understand. It makes sense they ended up together. They're both upstarts and agitators. So it makes sense. But I think this is a once in a millennium crossing paths of each other and doing what they've done.
I know, how wild, right?
Yeah. It's rewritten. It's rewritten our future. We were locked in pretty hard. You go back to the 80s and the 90s and you look at the trajectory humanity was on: fossil fuels, war, global warming, all of that sort of stuff. We seem pretty locked in. That's all. I just read the other day that the hole over the ozone layer and the Antarctica is all but gone now. It's gone now. We've fixed it. We've moved on. And war, we've moved on from, all these other things. We're moving back to fossil fuels thanks to Donald Trump. But, we've got so many open doors now with all of this that's going on, and we're more self-aware, I think, than we were, whether we like it or not. We've seen a lot of stuff we don't like. We've seen a lot of lies and a lot of bullshit happen in a really short amount of time. But one thing we have learned, what's still standing in a week is a little closer to the truth than what we heard a week ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like we're in a miasma. We're gonna pull out of it. I think before too long, either everything's going to really, really prove what Trump and Musk and all of them said was right, or it's going to really, really prove that it's wrong. And right now, talk's cheap. It doesn't really matter. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's talking, and there's a lot of people invested in making sure people feel like it's not going to work, or people feel like it is going to work, and things like that. There's a lot of talk. Talk's cheap right now. Let's see what's still standing in 100 days. 100 days, for God knows how many administrations, you would have seen nothing. You would have seen nothing. They would have made a whole bunch of promises. We've got it right now. It's election time in Australia, and we're getting the same rhetoric. Hey, vote us back in, and we'll do this. And everyone's saying, well, why didn't you do it 2 years ago? And that used to be how it worked. But now, shit, by the time we hit the end of the first year, we would have seen unprecedented change. So let's just see what comes out of this. Will stand the test of time as a testimony, one way or the other. What you feel right now won't matter, I don't think. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people don't like Trump. A lot of people don't like one of them, and since the other one hung out with him, they hate him now too. Sort of shit.
Like the two kids the two bullies from the playground.
Days. Let's touch ground again and see where we stand on all of this. Your life's either going to be better or it's going to be worse. And all the talk that's happening right now won't make a difference. There we are. That's where we'll be.
Okay.
Well, and if you know what I noticed when Pluto went into Aquarius is when everything really got a kickstart.
Oh God! Even we, as astrologers, sitting here speculating, we were trying to plan for a year. What hubris was that?
I don't know what we were thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. There's so much
And
happening
guess
so
what?
quickly.
The south node is gonna hit his Pluto.
Wow. We'll see evil Elon
I
instead of the
don't
good
think
one
so.
we've been seeing for so long.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And here's why I don't think so. Like I said, he's got all of those kids and he's got that little one that he carries around with him everywhere. I don't think that he wants to be seen as evil in any way. I think he wants to be a role model, for his kids especially, but I would assume for all of the younger generation. You know what I mean?
I don't think he cares what other people think, to be completely honest.
No, he doesn't. He
I don't
absolutely
think he
does
cares at
not.
all. I think he's seen the future that he wants, or a world that he wants to manifest, and he's working on it. And I support him for that. I support him for that. There's an overabundance of caring. I don't think in human history has a generation more painstakingly catalogued and videoed such mediocrity and such small achievements as what we've seen in the last 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm.
So I'm ready for greatness again.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, he's like at the level of he's a genius. I mean, in our lifetime.
Like I said, if you sat with him, what are you going to talk about with this guy? So why would he? He's not. He is alien to me. So I can't for the life of me believe that anything he's doing is to make a better world for individuals like me. He's thinking at a global level. He's thinking at a level, that we don't think about. Because he's not worried about taxes. He's not worried about mortgage payments. He's not worried about,
especially not yours or mine.
Yeah,
so
exactly. He's certainly not worried about the opinions of people. If he cared about that sort of stuff when his dad turned his back on him right at the beginning, that would have been game over.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been. So I don't think he cares what everybody else thinks. But because he doesn't care doesn't necessarily mean he's evil or he's working against humanity.
No.
And again, with that yod there on his chart, I think whatever he's manifesting is the end for some industries that have been powerful for a long time. You know what I mean? And for forms of thinking that we've held onto for generations, it's the end of that. All that Pluto energy launching into the future. It's a game changer. He's a culture jammer. We don't know where he's going, but we're all talking about it. We're all clicking our tongues, shaking our heads, or waving our flags, or whatever the case may be while he does it. But none of what we're doing is affecting his trajectory. He's still doing it.
No, and we can't stop him.
No. So we can only wait. We can only wait. And like
as a new student,
what's that? Sorry.
As a new student trying to figure this out, would you mind pointing out the yard for me?
Yeah, have a look at Pluto down the bottom there. In the third house, you've got Jupiter in the fifth house, and you see there's a blue sextile that's joining the two of them. Yep.
27.
Yeah. Now you'll see two green quincunxes pointing up to the midheaven up the top of the chart. That is an arrow that's pointing up to the top. That's called a yod, the finger of God. It's a reasonably rare placement that happens on charts, and it's found in the charts of many, many great historical figures. You can have a yod and spend a whole lifetime never activating it. In fact, for most yods, it never happens. But for every once in a while, somebody fully invests and works in and double down on that energy, and they are game changers. They're people who shake everything up.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally called the finger of God, and it's pointing to where their energy is going to manifest. Normally it points to a planet. In this case, it points to the midheaven. It's pointing firmly.
That's true. Like the midheaven was there to God.
Yeah, and then we've, as Antoinette pointed out, we've got Mars over there conjunct the North Node, which again is a double dose of the future.
God,
so he's a future builder. He's a future builder.
Aries.
Yeah.
It's
destiny.
Aries.
And that yod is powered by Pluto. We've got Pluto down there in the third house, and we've got Jupiter ruled by Scorpio, which is its ruler is Pluto in the fifth house. So, and that's what I mean for him. A lot of the changes and a lot of the reforms and the shifts in consciousness that he brings will be doomsday for a lot of what organizations and thoughts and companies and structures, and especially now that we've moved on, from Pluto and Capricorn. It's going to be shattering. Yeah. And I'm all for it.
Well, that's Pluto for you. I don't think Pluto is benevolent in anywhere that he goes.
No. It's got no personal attachments. And that's like Michael said, that's his communication style. Nothing he says ever is comforting. It's not necessarily, you know what I mean? He's not a politician. There's nothing polished about what he says. He's not going to crap on about, things need to get worse before they get better. That normal political rhetoric you hear stuff.
But that's why he can't be a politician.
Yeah, but it's Pluto. He's not even going to bother. He's just going to tell you how it is. And right now he's telling everybody that things are not good. And they need to change. So I think with Pluto moving into Aquarius, Elon's just the first. He's just the first. That planet is settling in. So this is just the beginning.
It's just the beginning, because when Uranus gets into Mercury, into Gemini, it's going to blow our minds with the technology.
Yeah.
Literally going to try to implant us.
Yeah.
Literally.
With the Neuralink.
Well, I've seen now they have something else that they just put here, and your eyes go back.
Yeah. Did you see Dark Mirror?
To do human trials on it. So that Neuralink is a thing now. They're using it to treat, I think, what is it?
Paraplegics.
Yeah, paraplegics and things like that, to reactivate brain activity through the body and stuff like that.
Oh, they are, but there's good. But to keep it, you have to have a subscription.
You know what? I'm glad Elon's doing it and not Google. The last thing I want is to see advertising popping up every 15 seconds when I'm doing something. You know what I mean? So, or you've got to pay a subscription fee to have it. That'd be the way Google would do it. So,
so I don't know if you guys have seen Antoinette's talking about the new thing that you put on your temple. So there's a new show on Netflix called The Dark Mirror, and it is actually, is that what you're talking about, Antoinette?
I haven't seen that episode, but yes, it could be. Yeah, where they just zonk
Yes, well, that stems from a new show that they just released on Netflix called Dark Mirror, and
I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, it's too. Yeah, you need to watch it. It's futuristic, but so I know what you're talking about. But they're just trying to normalize stuff like that, so that when they do put it out on the market, we've already seen it, so we'll be familiar with it.
Oh my God, that's how they do it. And The Simpsons.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the date? Wasn't Donald Trump dead by now on The Simpsons? Didn't he die in an episode? They had him in a coffin. So they've been wrong on that one. I think I saw something pop up on my feed a while ago.
Well, or were they?
Waiting. What's going to happen here? So
they do. It's been proven that they have doubles. And there's even the mask that the CIA have come out and said that they make these masks and everything. So, we talk.
It's true.
It is true. Yeah.
Well, in Hollywood, it's accepted.
I mean, so if they do it in Hollywood, why wouldn't they do it at the White House with the president? Yeah, duh. That's what I've said all along.
There's so much we don't know. And now everything is coming out. There's so much we don't know.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. It really is. It's hard. I have to remind myself just to stay grounded and remember just my little world. If I get too far out there and worried about what's going down rabbit holes,
the Matrix,
I can get
really.
No.
Waking up in your little container and seeing.
By the way, I wanted to ask you: you guys are sleeping well at night? I mean, just like before.
No, I wake up every hour on the hour, and I always wake up at 3:16 a.m.
Yeah, I find it very hard to fall asleep, and I don't know if it has to do with Pluto and Aquarius. Well, no, when I talk about the planets affecting us, but it's just generally, I feel like generally there's a shift, there's something going on that is unsettling. It's unsettling, and I don't know if it's Uranus, Pluto, and Aquarius.
Yeah,
I mean,
dropping off. I'll go to bed
when,
even if I'm tired. I'll just lie there, sometimes till 1, 2 in the morning, things like that. Interesting what you say about 316, Michaelin. I read something recently. Most deaths happen when people die in their sleep. Most deaths happen between 3 and 4 a.m., which is when the body's at its absolute lowest. So
God woke you up to keep you.
So maybe something's just triggering you around that time physically. Your body's reacting to something.
Interesting. Because
now that I
swear,
think about it, I probably shouldn't have said that, because you're definitely not going to sleep.
No. I like to hear stuff. So I get up at 4:15 every morning, with my husband, and I make his lunch and get him off to work because he has to go to work very early. But before that, I always wake up at 3:16, and then I'll wake up like at 2 or something along those lines. But I always wake up at 3:16. It's so weird.
But
I'll look over and tap on the thing. Huh?
You're about 4 making his lunch because he has to go early.
Yeah, he goes in, he drives an hour to get to work. So I'll get up and make his lunch for him and all that good stuff, and then go back to sleep for a couple hours. He's a good man. He's a hard worker, so I figure that's the least I can do. Feed him. Yeah. But yeah, so that's interesting, Damien. And that may be what it is, because I've always woken up. Even when I was a little girl, I used to wake up. I never slept through the night. I always wake up like between 3 and 4 to go to the bathroom or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's usually what it is. It's like I get woken up to go to the bathroom. So maybe that's it. Maybe I'm being sent back into my body at that time so that I can preserve. Yeah, that's cool.
Because the dreams are so strange.
Yeah. The interests of science, if you're falling in your sleep and you wake up, just look at the time. If it's between that time, who knows? You might have a close call. Yeah.
So cool. All right, I've got a dream book I'm going to go check out after we finish this meeting, because I'm intrigued. Because I've had falling dreams before. As a matter of fact, when I was very young, I had a falling dream, and I'll never forget it. So that's cool. So maybe that's it.
Oh my God, thinking of dreams, that special times. I remember I fell off a balcony, and I was driving in a car in the air, and then the car just went down. But that was a special thing that was going on in my life. I think that was Neptune that was going over my Chiron.
Wow.
Yeah. And since the sun and everything is there, and I was in a toxic relationship with the person who has sun in Cancer in the 12th house.
Wow. What? That's ironic.
And I was like, it's sinistries. It's sun in Cancer, conjunct my moon in Cancer. Not always.
Well, if Elon tries to get you to move on to his compounds, just say no. It's not going to work.
Elon, I don't think Elon would be. There's things I look at.
Going to do, Antoinette. Never say never with Elon. Yeah.
Well, he and Amber had a thing, so I don't know what she got out of it.
Money.
And she's special too.
She is certainly interesting. They're all interesting, aren't they? Yeah. Well, guys, what do you think? I think we've done a pretty solid job. It's pretty amazing and pretty self-explanatory in a lot of ways.
I agree. And I say good for him for overcoming something that could have, caused him to have it could have gone either way, his early years, and he overcame. So I think that's that Aquarius, that Mars and Aquarius all the way.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of the video that we did, Damien, on Mars, and we spoke about Mars and Aquarius. Who was the archetype? Was it from the Fight Club? Was it Brad Pitt? Yeah, it was Brad Pitt. So when you think of Mars and Aquarius, that's the energy, is the. So that's cool.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that
And
manifests,
Yep.
I think, in his life too, that Mars has really, really driven him.
Yep.
oh yeah, so what with Mercury's at 0 degrees Aries now, so Elon is like all charged up.
Mm,
If
aren't we
Mercury's in,
all?
yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah. We
I don't
all
have
are.
I don't have Elon's mind. So we're just, but I noticed, I said, this meeting, we're talking about all kinds of different things, outside of the chat, things that are
Mm-hmm.
very interesting, but very mercurial, just like
Mm-hmm.
Elon,
Yeah.
because I imagine that
Mm.
he's interested in a lot of different things. I
Oh, yeah,
imagine.
obviously.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it appears that way just based on all of just the companies that he started. That's a
Yeah, it's
lot of
like,
that's
because he said that he sometimes he doesn't go home, that he
yeah.
just sleeps on the sofa at work.
Or under
And
his
that's one
desk
of
when
the
he was
reasons
younger.
why his wife asked for a divorce, because he wasn't coming home, he was working around the clock,
But
and he
Grimes
wasn't
also
spending
said when he
time with the
come
kids.
home that the house was, he still lived like he was in poverty.
Mm.
They weren't expensive houses at all. They were sleeping on a mattress on the floor and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
he always lived his life like he was poor. It was his companies that had the money. It's at the early stages anyway. I remember that about 10 years ago. Yeah. But, and she said all these things, and now she's moved back to the compound. So something must have changed. I don't think there was a compound there. The more we talk about this, the more it feels like we're talking about Jim Jones or some cult. I don't know.
Oh, what was his name?
wow.
Koresh,
No.
David Koresh.
David Koresh, that's the one.
Yes, yes.
Because I'm telling you, Pluto is going to hit his north node, and then it's going to travel to the 8th house over his Mars. So we don't want to get him angry about anything.
Yeah.
Look, he would be an excellent cult leader, and there are a lot of people I think that would follow him.
He's very charismatic
He
because
really
he's
is.
not
Just like
he's good looking. I mean, he's not ugly.
Well, his intellect makes him attractive. How smart he
Right.
is, in my opinion.
And I think
his
the
mouth.
fact he's the richest man in the world adds that last
No.
5%.
Well, yeah,
Just
but
a little nudge over the edge there,
Yeah, well, that doesn't hurt, but that's what I think is cool about him is just how smart he is. I mean, that is what intrigues me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right, y'all. I think we broke him down.
I think we've for the
I think we
record,
did
to
good.
anybody watching this, we did invite Elon Musk to attend, but he declined. Or he didn't even get back in contact. So who knows? Who knows? We might get some feedback, some pushback down the line. I'm not sure, but thanks for watching. If you've heard this, then you've watched this to the end. So thank you for that.
Well, my plan is to send it to Elon, by the way, to you guys.
Okay.
I'm going to get in touch with this PR group.
We'll wait till this whole thing with Tim Waltz is resolved. I don't want another lawsuit on our hands. So, yeah.
Well, I did do the research, and because all of his information is out there and it's fair game. So we didn't technically need his permission. He's kind of already given his permission by doing his autobiographies. Yep. However, I did think it would be cool if we could get him to maybe give us some feedback, right? So Elon, if you're watching this, we would love to hear.
Because everybody's doing his chart. So he's like the big thing. Every astrologer all over the world is doing his chart.
That's right. When we talk about aliens, we're talking about ET, not Predator. So just putting that out there.
Well, I was talking about from the Andromedan galaxy, those kind of aliens, or Palladians, or what do you call them?
Pleiadians, yeah.
Pleiadians, Anunnaki.
I don't know, Michael. And what do you call them?
I don't know. I was thinking.
And do they call you? Okay.
Do they call me? Sometimes.
That's
good. Because I love the backdrop that you have tonight.
It's very lovely.
A thousand nights. What do you call it? Arabian Nights.
Arabian Nights, yeah.
Yes, and it also is indicative of the red pill, y'all.
Oh, okay. There you go.
You know,
There's
red
meaning
pill,
within
blue
meaning.
pill, red
Yeah.
pill, blue pill.
The Matrix.
We're in the red pill zone. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've all taken the red pill.
red
We
light
are
zone.
open.
Okay. Well, this was
Yeah.
fun.
It was
It
great.
was fun.
Thank you for coming, Antoinette. Thank you for coming, Rowan. Yeah.
Can I make note of that time change? Oh my goodness. Because first it was 10 o'clock my time, and then it was 9, and now it's 8.
Okay, I'll look into that because I thought that I went in and got all the times correct. I put the times under. We can talk about this later. It won't happen again. We'll get it figured out.
No, it's all right. We're human. We're human.
Yeah. Well, it's just all these time changes, I think it's just confused people. So no biggie. Everything is as it should be, and everything happens for a reason, and so we're all here together because this is what we were meant to do tonight.
Yeah.
Just us, just us
Always,
four.
we'll figure it out about 2 months before it's over, and then it'll switch again. So
That's what happens every year.
Oh God, yes.
yeah.
We need somebody. We need an AI.
I think Donald Trump said that he is going to put an end to all that, by the way, just so you guys know.
Good.
He said it's silly and it's ridiculous, and it worked back in the days when we were farming and so forth, but now it's just inconvenient. So
I agree with him.
I am pretty sure that that's on the agenda.
Wait to hear the backlash to that. I can't wait.
Well,
it's unnatural.
It is.
Well,
It
yeah,
is.
I love the backlash. It affects me because I feel it gets darker earlier, and then I don't like it. So if
it's
he
ridiculous.
does that,
It's stupid.
I hope everybody does. It's stupid. It's going against nature.
Well, it was fine back when, like I said, when they, either way, they didn't need a time change back then because they could just get up with the sun and go home when the sun went down. So it is ridiculous. And I'm sure there's...
Yes, that's how we used to do it before. You close your mouth when the sun goes down, you don't eat, and you go to bed.
Right. Yeah. So there's probably...
a Red Indian chief who said something about only a fool believes cutting the top off a blanket and stitching it to the bottom adds extra to the blanket. So,
yeah, right? Right. Yeah, so that being said, I hope that is next on the agenda. So
we'll mention it to Donald.
I'll call Elon later and see if he
come back
can
with something better, So
yeah, you're probably right.
Could be.
We'll challenge him to do that.
That's right. Let him know when you reach out, Michael.
I will. I'll let him know. I'll talk to him later.
Look at the transit. Is there a transit coming up? A transit video?
Yes, there will be. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I look forward to it.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, it's really helpful for me as well, and so therefore I want to do it for you guys because it really does help to sit down and really get to know where we're going and what to expect, and so that's why I do it. So yeah,
okay, because the year is flying past.
It is flying by. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. See you soon. Take care.
YouTube, thanks for watching. Yeah.
Thank you.
Catch you next
All
time.
right. Bye, Rowan. Bye, Michael.
Bye. See you later.
Bye, you guys.